Okay, hi everyone. My name is Autumn M, and I'm here from the Queen Sessions, editor and creator and founder. And I'm here today with two lovely ladies, and we'll be joined by another lovely lady as well. And we're going to talk about motherhood today. And I would love for the ladies to introduce themselves and let us know a little bit about you and your child and new mom or mom of a teenager or such. Emily, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Emily Luna. I also go by Mama Moon, and I currently have a 16-month-old daughter who is a handful, but she is amazing. And I am a contributor for the Queen Sessions, and I'd like to continue on that journey. But I also do have a podcast that I'm still working on. It's under construction, and a blog at Mama Moon's Journey. So that's definitely a big focus for me, aside from being full-time mom and full-time boss, I guess.
Right. And Sierra.
My name is Xiara. I am a writer contributor for the Queen Sessions. I have a 2-year-old and I have one on the way.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes,
I already knew that,
congratulations.
but I still want to say congratulations.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I really wanted to have this conversation with you ladies because motherhood is such a beautiful topic, and it's a topic that I actually can't touch upon yet in my life. But I know as the Queen Sessions continues to grow, we always have conversations about motherhood. And so I wanted to get you ladies together and talk about just like your motherhood journey, being a new mom, lessons you're learning, being a mom in this generation, and also being a mother of color because that's a different experience across the boards. And just for disclosure, I know we all come from different backgrounds. So I know culturally we also are going to have differences within that besides just being a woman of color. So I wanted to just ask this one question. And, how have you felt during your motherhood journey on taking on these roles and just what are some of the trials that you have faced already when it comes to figuring out your child or discovering who they are personality wise and everything?
Um, I, I think for me, a big challenge and journey that's been really exciting, even though there's been quite a few obstacles, is just making sure that I'm showing her the right things, that I'm being the example versus just telling her. Because I remember when I was younger, my mother would say, do as I say, not as I do. And that just bothered me because it's like, well, you're setting this example. I'm seeing you do this, but you want me to do something completely different. So for
Mhm.
me, it's just been a challenge trying to find ways to incorporate the morals that I want to instill in her, and also making her childhood fun and letting her know that she should be empowered, from this young age up into her adult life, I hope.
Right. That's beautiful. Sierra, do you have?
For me, a challenge I think that I went through and still sometimes go through, and it's not something like with my son, but a journey of like motherhood and like
Mhm.
body issues and like body image like was something like really big for me in like when I first gave birth, and then as I was trying to like get back to like pre-baby weight, because I've always been really tiny. I've always associated with that. So with that, and then being large, and then having all these stretch marks, and then having to go back and struggling with finding motivation was, I think, one of the biggest challenges. And then now, um in my second pregnancy, I'm a little bit more open to the concept of like getting bigger, and but I still kind of struggle with that. Like, I know that I'm not fat. I know that I'm not these, not that that's like a bad thing or anything, but for me as a tiny petite woman, just keeping in mind that it's an actual human that's like
Mhm.
growing and who's changing your body, and it's not because I'm not eating right or because I'm not being healthy or because of whatever other factors other than just being a mother and having your body change. I think is one of the largest like struggles for me. But also having the father of my child in the picture, he makes me feel like super beautiful and like super powerful all the
Yeah.
time. And just being present and being adamant about like your body's changing, and I appreciate all of these changes. and thank you for risking your life for creating this life for us.
Mhm.
It's kind of like even more of a like, okay, I got this, and when the baby's here, I can get back to it, and I feel like a lot more motivated through it.
That's beautiful. Both
Yeah.
of you. Very different story paths, you know. Emily, I loved your viewpoint on saying like with your mother, she was more of a do what I say, not as I do. And I think we all pretty much like grew up in that way. I'm not speaking for everyone, but I know for me it was very similar when it came to certain habits. And now just like seeing and you recognize that and now you're carrying on, you know, being a role model to your daughter. And I think that's beautiful. And Xiara, like recognizing the strength and beauty of your body during pregnancy, it's a very real thing for a lot of women, because we talk about that and we have conversations where um, now you see in social media women pop out like their child and they're back to being
Mm-hmm.
snatched, like wasted
Yeah.
snatched 2 weeks
3 weeks.
later. Yeah, and Lauren
Yeah.
London, I don't know if you're familiar with the actress, beautiful spirit. She gained weight during her pregnancy and she was very petite as well. And then she was uncomfortable with her body because of after child.
Oh, potty.
Hi,
Okay.
Xander.
Okay, let's go potty. Go.
So, being, you know, uncomfortable with her body after pregnancy, or just even Beyonce was talking about it as well. It took her twins for
Her.
her to finally be comfortable with her body after pregnancy. And I think it's beautiful, but I also want to ask, like, how do you feel about seeing these images of social media where it kind of puts this idea that your body's supposed to look a certain way after pregnancy, or you're giving like the certain timeline until you feel like your original size before the baby?
Um, I don't know if you
Oh,
want
go
to.
ahead.
Mhm.
For me, I know that for some women that's very real, and that in 3 weeks in a month time span, they're back to being tiny and back to pre-baby stuff, and that's awesome. And then there's, I don't think many people share, but I have started to see it a little bit more where women are like, okay, this is me after 3 weeks and I still have this pudge, like get over it, and I
Mhm.
still feel great and amazing. And seeing those like social media posts are like, it gives me like a reason to like take a breath and be like, okay, Xiara, like you're not like 800 pounds or anything, like you're still tiny. And so it's a good bad thing because people are sharing their reality, and there's definitely people who do snap back. And I have friends who were younger and the body can regenerate and do all these great things, but unfortunately my body didn't work like that, and I had to figure out a way to be okay with that. And
Mhm.
I think for me it wasn't just a weight thing too. It was definitely like the stretch marks, because like they're not going to go away, and they're definitely there. And like my stretch marks are like all over my body or all over my stomach. It's not just a line here or two or three and then they lightened up a little bit. Like they're very much present, and like it's a very like Freddy Krueger kind of thing, and I
Yeah.
don't like it.
Mhm.
But again, with the father of my child, he's like, these things are beautiful. Like this is like not an issue. Like you're tripping. Like relax. Like it's okay. So I think even having like a partner that can bring you back and ground you, I think is a blessing in itself. Because like a lot of people don't have that, or I didn't have that with my first child. So it's like a little bit of everything that kind of plays into it.
Right. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I agree 110% with everything that Sierra said, because it's interesting that social media, it takes you either one, extreme where women are snapping back and they look amazing and it's like days after they've given birth, and then you also get to see the real side that most women do deal with, where you're gonna have like a little pooch for a while, or you're going to have these stretch marks that like you said, Freddy Krueger. I told my husband that I feel like Tony the Tiger because I just
Mm,
have them everywhere. But I think just learning to accept it and trying to filter out um, those social media influencers that maybe it makes you feel bad when you log on to Instagram or Facebook, whatever it is, and you see them and you're like, oh man, I wish I looked like that. That's just a setup for negativity for yourself. So you just
Mm-hmm.
unfollow those people and follow the people that you can align yourself with. And I think that sets you up for a little bit more of a successful journey through any body image issues you might have. And it definitely does help if you have support from, you know, your spouse or your partner or family or friends, because like my husband, he has got me through the worst times by just being there and supporting me and letting me cry when I need to. And yeah.
That's awesome. And that just honestly goes into my next question about having a support system. So there are some ladies who unfortunately don't have a partner with them when they're going through birth. And we have to take on these roles of being a support system for them, like our friends or family and everything like that. So, you know, how important was it for you ladies to have more than just your partner there beside you? Like, because there are times I'm pretty sure that your partner could not relate to what was going on or things happening during your pregnancy, as such as like emotions or just like change in hormones and such. And I know you ladies probably talked to a woman that went through what you're going through or have been through. So
I personally like, it's a little difficult for me because my mother, she didn't really enjoy her pregnancy. She wasn't all about it, you know. And when I got pregnant, I was like, oh my gosh, look at my stomach. And it was like the
yeah.
second day I had just found out. So, you know, she wasn't able to help me through the journey like I needed. But I had friends, or I would see, you know, other women that were currently pregnant at the same time, people that I frankly wasn't even friends with. Maybe I knew them from school and we didn't really get along during that time. But I would see that they're going through a pregnancy and we would be able to connect because they'd post something and say, like, oh, you know, heartburn. And I'm like, yeah, I can totally understand. Or, you know, something like that. Or like, oh, lathering up the belly with a whole bunch of cocoa butter. And, you know, someone be like, yeah, I just
Right.
did that, you know. So that was nice. So I think finding ways to communicate with people that are going through that is definitely helpful. If you don't have a spouse or a partner or, you know, anyone to really help you through that.
Right. It's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. For my first pregnancy, I did not have my partner around. And he was not in the picture, so it was really like a difficult time to, again, go through those body changes and like feel these like great things, these like joyous, like I'm gonna become a mom, and oh my gosh, I have this little person coming, and like even those like good like moments weren't like shareable moments with like that person. And it was like cool to have my friends or like my sisters, and definitely my mom. Like my mom was like the first person who knew. She was like my go-to, my contact. She was actually there for the birth of my son. And being able to have these conversations with my mom, and for her, I'm sure that it was like my little girl, like she remembers giving birth to me, like, and then having be there for my birth too is like, I can only imagine like a trippy concept for her, like my baby, grown up, now a woman, having grandbabies here. Um, so definitely having those. But now it's still very early on, and it's very different to like be able to be in those joyous moments and like fully grasp them and be able to like be in them, with my partner, by myself, or like with my father, with my mother, or like with my siblings. Like everyone else is like, it's, I don't want, this sounds like kind of bad, but like another go round where we get the space to be like super excited and super happy about what's happening. Whereas before it was a little bit more like, we're all super excited, we're all really happy, this is a blessing, this is amazing. But the situation isn't like the best situation or not the ideal situation. So it was a little tough to like navigate how great this is and how great is going to be with this like not so great situation. But this time around, I think it's just like only great, and there's no like odd forces going at each other, like
Mhm.
so definitely I think who is ever around, whether it's just a friend, whether it's like 20 friends, whether it's a family member, there you have support somewhere. You
Right.
know, you just kind of have to be able to speak up and say, hey, I need help, or hey, I'm not feeling my best today, or hey, like you have a someone somewhere, like always. So I think just finding someone, because doing it by yourself, I don't think people really talk about it enough about women. Like we talk about single mothers a lot, but I think we talk about it when once the child is already here, and like once those things are happening, once we're raising these babies. But we're not talking about like going through a pregnancy alone. Like we're not having that conversation enough, because I think that's in itself is a whole psychological conversation to be had,
Right.
because like your body is changing on you, your hormones are absurd, your cravings, all these things are happening to your body, and like to not have someone to have those conversations with, or like you have like these DNAs inside you, your own DNA, your partner's DNA, this baby's DNA, and it's like doing things to your body, and we're not having that conversation enough to be like, hey, what's going on with this single mom who's single during pregnancy? Like, what's up with that? We're more still talking about it once the babies are here, and the struggles and getting to school and paying this and doing that. But I think the single pregnancy is a conversation to be had and touched on a little bit more.
Right.
And I just want to say, like, I salute you, Xiara, because, like, you opening up about it, it's a beautiful thing that you are able to share that experience, because, like you said, it's not talked about. And I can't imagine, and I definitely commend you, because if I didn't have the support that I had during my pregnancy, it would have been a lot rougher than it was. But I'm sure
Yeah.
that you turned it into a beautiful experience still. So,
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
yeah.
you.
I love it. Okay. Next question. It's going to be a little bit more of a turn. It's talking about more of the healthcare when it comes to women of color, because we're always foreseen as someone strong and everything of that sort. But great example was Serena Williams, when she more than once had advocated and said to her doctor, like, hey, or vocalized, I should better say, vocalized to her doctor that she was experiencing pains, and she actually could have lost her life and her baby's life if she had not actually trusted herself. And a lot of times we see that within healthcare and everything like that, women of color, when they come and they talk about, hey, I just feel something's not right within my body or some sort, it's kind of more of like, oh, you're exaggerating or you're overthinking it. So with your pregnancy experiences, again, the pregnancy, did you experience any type of health complications where you knew something wasn't right within your body, or you just felt it wasn't coming? Oh, Liana's going to be coming in now. Hold on. We'll wait for her to come in. Hold on. Oh, well, she'll come in shortly. But did you ladies experience any complications where you had to vocalize over and over again, like, no, something's not right with my body? Or you knew something wasn't right with your body and your healthcare and your doctor didn't really understand that?
I kind of have like a horror story in a way, but it wasn't during my pregnancy. It was during my labor. So I actually went into labor Sunday evening in December. And it was like the day of my due date. That was the day that the doctor said, or the technician had said. But anyways, I remember I just started getting a lot of pains, contractions. And so we went to the hospital. They checked me, did all the procedures, and they're like, oh, well, you're not dilated enough. You need to walk around. So I'm walking around. I'm doing whatever I can. My husband's trying to, you know, make it a little bit easier, but still didn't dilate enough. So they sent me home, and it's an hour drive for me. So from the hospital to home, still had contractions. They were 5 to 7 minutes apart. And same thing. I was in labor the whole day, whole night. And then I went back in the morning, and they still said, oh, no. Oh, hi, Liana.
Hi.
They said that I still wasn't dilated enough. And so they sent me away again. And they had told me that time they would keep me, and they didn't. And so finally, later Monday evening, they admit me, everything's good. I said I wasn't going to get the epidural. That was a lie. I did get it. And then it fell out. So like my contractions went away. I didn't have anything when I had the epidural. And then maybe a few hours later after they'd given it to me, I started feeling, pain again and contractions, and it was all in my back. And I kept saying, I can feel it. Can you maybe put some more medicine? They're pressing the little button. Nothing's happening. My husband's, trying to get someone to pay attention. No one's paying attention. And finally, it just got so bad. I was like almost in tears, and they're like, well, let's see what's going on. So they roll me over and I'm still numb, and they see, oh, the epidural fell out. So you haven't been getting any medicine for probably over an hour. The whole bed was soaked with, all the stuff that should have been going in my back. And then they called the anesthesiologist, and he just acted like it was such a big problem for him to come back, but it was his fault because he didn't tape it properly. And so that was frustrating. I was in the worst part of my labor at that time. Like the contractions were so bad. My blood pressure was like shooting through the roof. And then I started to feel like I needed to push, and they're like, you can't push. You're not dilated enough. But all of that stress of losing the epidural had just caused so much swelling, and it led to a cesarean later because I couldn't dilate anymore. So
Wow.
Wow.
And before we continue the convo, let me introduce Lyana. She's also a contributor to Queen Sessions, and she's a mother. And tell us a little bit about yourself really fast.
Well, I am a mom. Sorry, I get super nervous with public speaking. So this is like, even though it's on video, I'm like really bad at it. I have a 12-year-old. I had my son when I had just turned 21. And luckily my birth story was not as traumatic. I am so sorry you went through that. I had worked in the medical field for a long time. So when I hear stories like that, it just makes me so furious that women, especially women of color, were not listened to in regards to delivering our children. So that makes me extremely furious for you. And I'm so sorry you went through that. A little bit about me. Right now I'm working as a technical writer. I'm a mom and super nerd and ready for Avengers. And I guess that's that's the quick synopsis.
I love it. So yes, and going back to just echoing what you were saying, we were talking about healthcare and women of color and how most of the time we're overlooked when we say we have an issue going on within us. And did you have a similar experience with your pregnancy or maybe postpartum pregnancy?
I actually didn't have, as far as my delivery it wasn't like I wasn't being listened to. Actually, they did listen to me. I was 4 days past due, and I was like, I'm ready for him to be out, and he wasn't turning. So, and he was laying, they call it transverse. So his head was on one side and his foot was on one side, and he refused to flip. So they sent me for a non-stress test and an ultrasound. The ultrasound, he was still head and feet. And then the non-stress test, I failed it. So they put me into being induced. I never dilated, which was a big fear of mine because my mother never dilated. And I didn't realize that things like that can sometimes be genetic. So if your mother has issues with labor, that can sometimes, you can end up with a similar situation. Mm-hmm. So I never dilated, and I ended up having to have an emergency C-section, which actually worked out great because he was wrapped in his cord around his torso and his neck. Wow. So if I would have naturally delivered, he probably would not have survived. But when he was born, he came out wide awake, which I didn't expect because they said usually if you get the epidural for a C-section that the baby's really lethargic. No, they said he came out wide awake. His head popped out. The doctor jumped back, freaked out because he was looking around, moving his neck. And luckily, everything went really well. I actually ended up with really great nurses. And so, except for one, I had one nurse that my board said allergic to penicillin and codeine. And that was exactly what she gave me for medication. And I was like, you need to leave before I murder you because my board says allergic and you're giving me exactly what I'm allergic to. But other than that, my delivery and labor wasn't really difficult or that bad. It was just not what I had planned because I originally went to a midwife. So I figured I'd be giving birth at a birthing cottage and not the hospital, but everything happens for a reason. So he's here. and driving me crazy.
Xiara, do you want to share your story?
For me, I was just blessed with just a great pregnancy, a great labor. Everything went smoothly. Everything kind of went as planned. The only one thing I think I had, she wasn't a nurse. She was more like a student nurse or like a student learning. Um, we're right by the university, so a lot of the students from the university, it's a teaching it's a teaching hospital
Mm-hmm.
too. So for me, yes. Okay, go ahead. Open the door. For me, I wanted to have a silent birth, which just means that I don't want people screaming at me to push. I just need people's energies to be a lot lower, things like that. And the one nurse, my mom spoke Spanish, and my like actual nurse spoke English, and they were both speaking to me. And then she kept translating, and I was like, I'm not sure why you're translating and why you're speaking so loudly. Okay, give me a second. You need to potty. It's potty.
Okay, no problem.
So I just wasn't sure to why she was translating or speaking so loudly. And I'm like, why are you even here? Like, you're not respecting, like, everyone else knows that this is a silent birth. So I'm not really sure why you don't or why that wasn't communicated to you, but you're being super loud in my, like, delivering room. And you're translating when I don't need you to translate either language. Like, so in that sense, that was like my one little frustrating moment. But other than that,
Mm-hmm.
everything went smoothly. Um, I only pushed for about like 15, 20 minutes before he arrived. Everything for me, I was blessed. And I think that he knew what situation he was coming into. So God just blessed me with this calm, cool, and collected kid just because there was so much going on the outside world for his coming that he needed to be the calm one. So for me, I think that's just what I was blessed with this pregnancy. It's a little bit more like I definitely feel things a little bit more, even though I'm like earlier on. But I also interviewed all of my doctors, all of my pediatricians. So in that sense, like I like to be prepared and know where my baby's going, who's checking what, where
Mm-hmm.
things are, how clean a doctor's office is. So I literally went office to office, interviewing doctors, checking their offices, making sure that I felt comfortable with them. And then for religious reasons, I wanted to have a female doctor. And then unfortunately, she was on vacation the day I was going into labor. So a male doctor delivered my son. But other than that, I was blessed and grateful to have the team that I had, and they were very patient and very much there with me. So again, yeah, for you guys, I'm sorry to hear your stories, and like it sucks that we are in our bodies. Like you would think that other people would know to allow us to know what's going on with our bodies, and like
Right.
that disconnect like freaks me out. Like I'm like, why would you not listen to me? Like it's my body. I'm literally inside of it. Like so yeah.
Right. And this, hearing all of your lady stories, goes back to the point that everybody has a different body, everybody has a different experience.
Mhm.
And all three of you ladies, like to hear that each experience was different, truly amazing. And also like it brings like a spotlight on how people all perceive who have never been pregnant, or who have never been, around pregnancy and such, where they perceive it to be this like very glammed up thing because that's what's going on and that's what we're being broadcasted. While pregnancy is beautiful, it's a beautiful thing. You're creating a human, you're creating life. But there are complications that come with it. And hearing your ladies' stories about it, from body image to journeys to deliveries, it's really beautiful. One question I did want to ask, you know, um, or just one topic, I want to touch upon is just like the surrogacy topic. I know none of you ladies have had a surrogacy, but as far as motherhood, we're having these conversations about new ways of motherhood and how, yes, you may not have given birth to your baby, but it's still your child. And there is a lot of bashing against that. Now, how do you ladies feel about, the communities of being a natural birth deliverer versus a surrogacy?
For me, I think surrogacy is a great thing because you have to be very selfless in order to carry a child, especially if the child is not biologically yours, but you're carrying it for somebody because you still go through all these same emotions, all the same attachments. Everything will be the same, but you're giving away the child. So you're going to have that feeling of, I had this life inside of me and then I gave it away. Um, so it's a very selfless act to be able to have a child for somebody else. So I think it's beautiful if women are willing to be or use a surrogate. I just think you have to really know what you're getting into involving it. My sister had a hysterectomy really early for medical reasons. And I told her, I was like, if you ever decide, I would be willing to have, carry the baby for you. She's like, you don't have to worry about that. I never want kids. So I was like, but I know, it losing the ability to have children as a woman, some women take it as, it's I'm losing my womanhood. For her, it was great because she never wanted kids anyway. But I was like, in case you ever decide, I'm willing to do it for you. So um, that probably will never happen, but it's out there if she wants it. But yeah, so I think surrogacy is a really beautiful thing. And I think there's more than one way to be a mother. Women adopt all the time and they're still a mother. I have tons of god kids that I consider my kids because I pretty much treat them like my kids. They all get time out the same. They all get punished the same. They're basically my other children. So for me, there's more than one way to be a mother. You don't have to always physically give birth to be a mother. So that's my own personal take on it.
I heard the response, but I didn't quite get the question.
Of course. So we're having the surrogacy conversation because there's a lot of debates and back and forth on whether it's still considered motherhood if, or just like actually your baby if, you opt to do a surrogate versus, carrying the baby. And a lot of times women actually can't handle, being pregnant because of medical reasons and such. And one great example was Gabrielle Union being bashed throughout the motherhood, some of the motherhood community for having a surrogate and acting or posing as if the baby was she naturally birthed it out of her. So just like, what's the standpoint on natural, not natural per se, like without epidural, but like having the child within your body versus carrying it with a surrogate.
Okay. So I go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I kind of everything that you were just saying. I think you're a mom. You're a mom. That's your baby.
Yeah.
I think motherhood is more about like a connection and more about like um a feeling or a moment or an experience, something that you're sharing with someone else. I don't think it has to do with how you birth your baby, how your baby gets here. It definitely is more about who you are and who this little person is and like your love, your attachment to them. I was definitely a mother before I had my son. I've always been a mom. I think I came to this earth to be a mom and to like that was what I came here to like give. So I was always a mom. I think I've been a mother in every past life. I don't know that I've been anything else. So for me, like, I think that's weird that people are that concerned about how someone else chooses to do motherhood. I can see that you might feel like there might be a disconnect, but that's not for you to choose. Like you don't get to choose how someone else connects to their child. Like that's not realistic in any sense. Um so for me, I'm like, yo, get your baby however you get your baby. Like it's your baby is meant for you. Like
Wait,
you're
don't
gonna
advocate stealing babies though.
no, don't steal babies. Don't, not like in that sense,
No
but like,
kidnapping, but just
like with the adoption thing, like a lot of people say that they see this child and that they just know, like, your baby is yours. Like, you just know it, like, when it happens, like, and like, even for me, like, with my son, like, or even with like C-sections, I know there's some people who get weird about that and they try to take that from certain moms, and I'm like, that's so odd. Like that's still their baby. Like what? It doesn't make like it
and a
doesn't take away
C-section is
from.
still a delivery. I mean, you're still it's still a process. The
There's,
person still gets here,
yeah,
and like without C-section, how many people would not be here? Like that's
absolutely.
my thing. I was like, my kid wouldn't have lived. I wouldn't have lived. My siblings wouldn't have lived. We were all C-section babies. So how are you going to
Yeah,
say that it wasn't a labor when
right.
I wouldn't be here? But you want to be pro-choice? Like that makes no sense. You can't.
Yeah, it's
You
odd.
can't. No, pro-life. Sorry. You want to be pro-life, but then tell people, well, if you have a C-section, you're not really giving birth. Like that makes no sense.
It's odd. And then even with like Kim Kardashian, where I think her third child was through surrogacy, and it
Mm-hmm.
was because of health reasons,
Yeah.
and I don't know too much about Gabrielle Union's situation, but I think it was also health issues and like her being older, and as you get older the risks are
Yeah.
higher for your body, and we talked
Yeah.
about
She
like body
disclosed she had 3
changes
miscarriages before. Oh,
prior
sorry.
to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. That can be super scary to have those experiences, and then the chance that you want to be able to have your baby. I'm sure that when you find out that you're pregnant, and if they're planned, and things are exciting, and then to have a miscarriage and it feels like something is ripped away from you and taken from you, like if that was her option, like that doesn't
Yeah.
make her less of a mother. She's present, and I think that's a part of being a parent, is like being
Mm-hmm.
present for your child, like, you know so yeah.
Emily, what are your thoughts on this?
Of course, I think surrogacy is a beautiful thing. I think it's wonderful that people are strong enough, women are strong enough to be able to do that. Because for me, I don't think that I could do it. I would want to, but I don't think I could do it because the emotional attachment that you get to this child growing inside of you, feeling those kicks and all of those things. I think I'm too emotional of a person to be able to do that successfully, but I think it's amazing for women that can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm being controversial, with the whole like Kim Kardashian thing, she has such a big platform, and I don't think she's any less of a mother for using surrogacy to,
Mm-hmm.
receive a child. But I do think she is on such a large platform that I think it would be beneficial for her to share that experience, just as much as she's opening up about her health reasons for seeking surrogacy. You know what I mean? I don't really watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians, so I can't say I'm an expert. But I wish I would see a little bit more of, what is the process of communicating with the woman that is carrying your child? What is the
Hmm.
process of going through that with the woman that's carrying the child, because she's going through something emotionally just as much as you are not being able to carry your child. So I
Right.
think
Hmm.
it doesn't make her any less of a mother, but I hope that she will open up about that aspect of that.
Hmm.
Right. Very beautiful. Ladies, again, thank you again for sharing all your stories and your thoughts. We'll probably just wrap it up with this one question. So the one question that I have is just like such a generational difference between mothering now versus mothering then. What are some things that you had to set boundaries or guidelines for people who try to tell you how to parent your child? There are people who do that. They try to tell you how to parent your child, how this will affect them or this and that. And we have come so far, as in we have transgender children, who are recognizing parents still reporting their children, children advocating for different movements and rights, or just like in the front lines of different society issues, or we just have children who are suffering mental illness. Rest in peace to a young boy that actually committed suicide for being bullied in school. And we have like all this going on with kids. And as a mother, is like, how do you feel when someone tries to tell you what you're doing as far as like uplifting your child is wrong?
Yeah, like for me, that's a touchy subject, because again, I'm just going to be open in the sense that me and my mother have had a very different relationship than most people do. So like a lot of people fall back on their mom, and for me, I haven't always had that option. But like I think if you're the one providing for that child, if you're the one that is sustaining them, if you're the one that is emotionally putting everything into them, just block out the rest. It's hard. It's easier said than done, because when you've got like 10 different people telling you, you need to do this, you need to, especially when the baby's born, they're like, you need to wrap them this way, you need to feed them this type of food, you should only be eating this yourself if you're breastfeeding it, and if you're not breastfeeding, you're not doing it right, things like that. Especially in early years, it's just difficult. You shouldn't have to deal with that, because they, like, children don't come with instruction manuals. They really teach you and help you to adapt, so you'll learn as you go. It's always good to take feedback, but I think if someone's just trying to tell you how to live your life and how to raise your child, you just have to accept what you think is beneficial and just discard the rest, because everyone's got an opinion and they're not the ones that are actually living the life and doing what you do every day. So
Right. Lyana, the question was, you know, we see so much like happening as far as new parenting versus old parenting. To better summarize what I said prior, sorry, ladies. But new parenting versus old parenting, where you see more parents actually advocating for their kids and understanding them, and, you know, bringing more mental health awareness or talking about different issues with them. And how do you feel when somebody, you know, from your different generation, or somebody within your family or a friend or someone who tries to tell you how to parent your child?
It can be very frustrating when you have someone telling you how to parent your child. I try to let friends that are having like their child for the first time know that you will always be a new parent. You will never not be a new parent. Every stage of childhood, of raising your child, requires you to be in a new stage as a parent. So you will always, no matter what, be a new parent. And if you think like that, you can always approach it willing to learn and willing to, you know, do what works best for your child. Advice is nice and it's great when it comes from a good place, but you need to learn how to separate what's going to work for you in your child versus what's not going to work for you in your child. And you also have to be willing to set boundaries with family members, with friends, with other people. Like, I appreciate your input, but this is my kid. I know how it's going to work for them, and I know what's best, because you will always know what's best for your child. Nobody will ever know more than you about your child. So I think if you kind of wrap all of that together and move forward, I think you'll be able to do the best for your child that you need to do. As far as mental health, I think it's very important that we as parents take that into consideration when we're doing things for our children. With me, because of, make a long story short, my son's father is in prison. And because of that, I've always been an advocate for my son to go to counseling and therapy, because I know the issues that are involved with that is not something I can fix myself. And as he gets older, I don't want him having stigma or self-doubts or just all the issues that come with having an absent parent. I don't want him to not have the tools to be able to deal with that as he gets older. So for me, it's very important for mental health for my son, for myself, and just, you know, making sure that that is all, I guess, covered, if that makes sense. And especially in the Black community, you know, mental health is kind of looked down upon. Therapy is looked down upon, but in order to make sure your child is well-rounded and healthy in all aspects, you need to make sure the mental part as well as the physical part is taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask at what age, because you mentioned he's 12 now, at
Yeah.
what age did you start seeking counseling for him, or like what was the timeline for that, or from when dad went in, or
when I start when his father got locked up, he was a year old. His father got into trouble when I was 8 months pregnant, and then the trial concluded when he was about a year old, and he was sentenced to 30 years. So he has not been physically in my son's life since he was a year old. When my son was about 4 or 5 is when I started, because I actually had a job that had insurance at that time. So that's when I started taking him to see a therapist, to talk it through. And then because of job changes, insurance issues, I wasn't able to get him back into counseling until December of last year. So I finally got a job that has insurance that I can take him. So he's been going periodically as of right now to a therapist, which is helping, especially because he's at the pre-puberty, preteen stage. Well, he's in puberty and he's at the preteen stage. So his attitude and his hormones are all up and down and all over the place. Which is why which is why I'm out in and out
a couple times.
I remember we used to test our parents back when we was in that
testing, and I'm like, I know that I was not an angel all the time, but I know I was not this bad with the mouth. Like, I know I was not this bad with the mouth. So I don't know if it's just this generation or what, because I'm like, every day I pray.
I was just asking, just because I have a family member who is in a similar situation, and her son is in that age, 11, 12, going into that puberty. Father is not present for the same reasons. And it's been hard and I think having a boy too, and being a woman, like, we literally can't raise these like, it's not a one person job. And I think, I had mentioned earlier, I'm not sure if we were in the conversation then, that like, we talk about like single mothers as we're going through situations like this, but we're not talking about it from the very beginning, from the pregnancy. Like, it sounds like you were at 8 months kind of by yourself at that point, going into labor by yourself at that point, doing the first few milestones by yourself.
I was alone. My first day home from the hospital with him after I had my C-section, I was alone. My mom was with me the first night, but then she had to fly back because she had stuff that she had to do in Massachusetts. So I was alone. So it was just me with a C-section scar and a first doctor's appointment. And I was like, so how are you supposed to do this? I was like, well, I just move slow, and that's what I had to do it.
Like, we kind of just have to figure it out. Yeah. So I applaud you in that sense, and to be able to like realize that you can do something to help or to attempt to help the situation. My mom, for me, like, I'm so blessed with the parents that I have. My mom, we didn't know that it was anxiety or that it was depression or anything like that when I was a lot younger, but she knew that something was like off, and she was like, "What? We need you to talk to someone with what's going on with you," because I would like shut off, or I would just like completely disappear, not like in like the physical sense, like I would just be gone in my mind, and people just couldn't reach me, and we couldn't really, like, as a 6-7-year-old, I had no idea what was going on or like what was happening, or that it wasn't normal, or that it wasn't common, or so to have a parent that advocates for you, I think, is like an amazing thing to have, because I've always been in therapy, so like I've consistently have had that outlet, and like it's helped me tremendously. So it's something that I hope that my family member can find for their son, and like, even though it's like, what the situation is, it's for kids to deal with adult issues is really like
and they don't understand, like, they understand it. Kids understand adult issues, but they don't understand adult issues. Like, they understand the side that they're seeing, but they are not understanding everything that led up to it. So for them, it's like, I get why the situation is right now, but how do I fix it? And they always feel like it's them that made the problem, but it's not. So I'm a big advocate for mental health therapy for kids, adults, for everybody. Like, pretty much everybody needs some form of therapy or outlet, something. Even if it's just for a short time, may not be your entire life. It may not be for months on end, but being able to express yourself sometimes to a non-biased party is really important, because you get a different perspective than your friends or your family.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I love everyone's viewpoint. I know, Xiara, you didn't get to share yours, but we're running a little bit over on time. We definitely will have probably a part 2 in the future. And I love all you ladies for sharing your stories. Thank you again so much. Give yourself some hands. Yes. Or should we do snaps? I don't know. Whatever y'all want to do.
I can only snap with one hand.
So again, if you ladies would love to introduce yourselves and just like say where we can find you, and let us know your Instagram handles. Emily, would you mind starting?
Yes. So my name again is Emily Luna, but I also go by Momma Moon. You can follow me at Momma Moon's Journey on Instagram and also on Blogspot or WordPress.
For me, this is my Zan.
Hi, Santa.
For me, you can find me on Sit with Xiara, Sit W, and then my name is Xiara. And the many realms. Thank you.
You can find me at Lay Labie. Oh, sorry. Yeah, at Lay_Labie on Instagram. And my Twitter is at Lay Peters. So I'm on Twitter a lot, just talking junk.
Yes. And you ladies have individual projects and blogs again. Emily, she has her podcast that we have actually linked within the Queen Session. Xiara's has The Many Realms. And Lyana, she is actually a writer with other sources. So we'll get you ladies, like, we'll put in the comments, not the comments, the description below. We'll put the links and everything. See, it's too late. Like, see, it's 4:00 here. It's either I need wine or coffee right now. I'm tired. But so ladies, again, thank you again so much. My name is Autumn M from the Queen Sessions, and I am excited. And we'll do this again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.